So I've invited a really good friend of mine to come and meet me today to talk a little bit about what he's been doing over the last 20 years with cycling, and more to the point why he's been so invested into cycling. So Graham, thank you for coming all this way to give me some of your time.
You're welcome.
It's in my interest to motivate as many people as possible to get into health and fitness, but not for just for the aesthetic reasons, but there are a lot more reasons deeper than that which I have found value in, as I know you have. So we've come to Queen Elizabeth Country Park, which is amazing, and you've been giving me some great footage of you cycling and talking to me briefly about why you got into it. Could you please tell everyone what it means to you and why you got into cycling for fitness?
Sure, absolutely. So mountain biking for me is multifaceted. I found it to be an amazing escape away from, particularly recently with all the issues over business with Brexit and then of course with the COVID. I found it as a way of just being able to get out on my own. Two sides. One, I get the space to be on my own thinking time and physical time, just being away from the office and away from home, me time, and more so now, not when COVID was actually on, the lockdown was on, but now I can get out with my mates as well. And
I think a lot of people suffer from depression, which is really common, and we've suffered loss in our family through suicide, and I know loads of people have. It's just not uncommon at all. So for those types of people that are suffering and they can't reach out and speak to people, I just think this was a great message to be able to sort of put out there to people that might be watching this, that are suffering from feeling anxiety, like bouts of anxiety, feeling alone. Did you ever feel a bit like that at any times with things that you've had going on in your life, and this has sort of been an instant relief?
Absolutely right. I went through a 5-year-long court case, a maintenance court case with my ex-wife, and I found the whole process incredibly frustrating and time-consuming, and it consumes you mentally as well. And as a result of that, I did suffer from depression and the frustration of being involved in something that I had no control over. So for me at that time, the mountain biking was a perfect escape from that. It really meant a lot to me to be able to get out in nature, in the hills, put all of that behind me and find some time on my own.
And you were featured in a magazine recently. What magazine was that?
It was Cycling Weekly. Yeah, they picked up, and it was a really broad article about the benefits of cycling, but greater than just the physical thing. So talking about the mental side as well.
How would I get into it if for example, I had a lovely place like this, Queen Elizabeth Country Park, and I noticed there's millions of routes to this place. How would you navigate yourself around a cycle route? Is there a way to download an app or?
Yeah, so there's two apps that I use. I use one called Trail Forks, which is really good for finding local trails where you are. Or the other big one is Strava. Strava seems to be used by virtually everybody who does cycling, both on road and also on mountain biking. And Strava can be used also for running and swimming. So anything that you're doing, it can track where you are. And you can see the trails in the local area where you're riding. So if you're going to a new area, you can have a look at it and try and find out where all the local trails are, and you can follow those. And then what it does is you start it, and it starts a timer, and it starts tracking where you are. And then when you've finished, you can look at the route that you've done. And Strava automatically divides all of the routes into different segments that people have previously ridden. And that's where it can get really competitive and fun if you want to be competitive, because you can see how fast other people have done various segments, either climbing or down hills. So you can challenge yourself, and you can challenge yourself against other friends and other athletes. And it has a leaderboard, and you can push yourself to get on the leaderboard. You can also push yourself, if you get really good, to be either the king or the queen of the mountain, which means you've done that particular segment as fast as possible. I wouldn't advocate trying to do that if you're new to cycling or mountain biking, but it's a good thing to look at your own progression, look at the stats of how you're doing. Both of those apps are free, but with Strava there's a premium version that's got much more data on it.
And have you met people through doing this? I mean, you're obviously very much on your own when you're cycling, And when people are going through tough times, it's always quite nice to be with other people.
Yeah.
But do you ever find that you tend to be alone, taking any views, or do you ever get to meet people out on the road? Do people stop, and are there clubs or?
Yeah, so there's loads of clubs. You can find them either via Strava or in fact via Facebook groups. So in your local area, you can have a look at who's riding in the Surrey Hills, which is where I'm from and where I do a lot of my riding. You can also go on to other things like Instagram and so on, so there's clubs around there. For me, I like riding some of the time on my own if I want my own headspace, and I ride at night as well, so and in different parts of the country, so I get different things from it. Obviously night riding is very different to day riding, or go out with a group of mates. So either mates that I know, we've got a group at work that go out, and we get together when we can and go and ride.
So if you could take your bike to any place in the world to really get some headspace and get your head back on track, or just take some time out from the rat race, where would you go?
Oh, good question. So a few years ago I went to Africa, South Africa. I went on safari, and it is just the most beautiful place and beautiful continent, and so out of choice I'd go back there in a heartbeat. It's just magical, particularly on safari out in the middle of the savannah. Have to go with a guide probably, because probably riding in Africa is probably not a great thing to be doing on your own, but I should imagine just being in that countryside would be amazing. Closer to home, the Alps is amazing. There's some beautiful riding, really good downhill riding. I love the adrenaline of that. So for a quick hop over into the Alps
but somewhere like this would be a great place to start, because
this is perfect.
It's the unknown, and you've got to figure out, map your way around.
Yeah.
And maybe this would be a good stepping stone to the Alps next.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just starting out in mountain biking, then this is absolutely perfect, and you'll find that the local trails are graded, so they'll be relatively easy through to the sort of red routes, and the black routes, which are hard. And places like Queen Elizabeth Park, they categorise the routes, so you know what you're going on. So even going on your own or going out with your family, and you just at the end of the day, just take it at your own pace. You're not competing. You're not actually, despite what I said about Strava, you're only competing with yourself, and it's for your own space. More importantly,
would you have a message to anybody out there watching this who is looking for an outlet?
Oh, definitely. I mean, so for me, it's pick a discipline, which for me was cycling. Then make yourself a target. I think you're much better off and much more likely to achieve something if you have a specific goal. Now that goal in cycling may be cycling up a hill in a certain time, or doing a certain amount of kilometres as a route. But do that, and then you'll find that if you use something like Strava, you can progress along and see what your progression is towards making that route, either getting longer or getting faster up a hill. So you can actually see yourself improving.
I will just bring up your hair quickly, because this is my fault.
The elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room is my fault. I dared Graham to dye his hair bright orange, and he raised money in doing so for a charity. What was the charity called?
Disability Challenges in Guildford.
Okay, so you raised how much?
Over £2,000.
And he had to walk around with bright orange hair, and he looked like Beaker from the Muppets. Now he's fading to a peachy, flamingo-y peachy colour. But anyway, that whole story was absolutely wonderful, that the fact that you use biking to do that. And what else have you done about?
So that was really good to be able to give back at the moment, in because all the charities have been hit really hard, obviously, as a result of the COVID and the lockdown and so on. But the thing I did before that, and one of the things that helped me really get a focus on being fit, was I did the London to Brighton off-road mountain bike ride for the British Heart Foundation. So that's 75 miles off-road, starting from Walton area down to Brighton. And the thing that did for me is it gave me a focus. It meant that I had to get fit because I wanted to enjoy it. I followed my routes on Strava. I went away to Dartmoor on my own and did some training on the hills on Dartmoor. And again, raised over £3,000 for the British Heart Foundation, which was in memory of my dad, so it was really good. And one of the things, talking about the mental health thing, is being able to focus on other people and their needs, and is really great. It takes you away from being self-centered, particularly when you're stuck in something. So for me, that was a win-win situation. Really enjoyed it. It got me even fitter, and raised some good cash for the charity. So brilliant.
So take some inspiration from Graham, get your bike, get outside, especially if you're going through some difficult times. No need to sit around. Enjoy this lovely, lovely space we have, the world.